In the headlines, President Buhari meets governors CBN, EFCC over Naira scarcity. 3 days to Naira circulation deadline, chaos remains at banks as scarcity persists. Katsina community mourns 100 people killed, says security operatives abandoned them to their fate. And on the foreign scene, Turkey declares 3-month emergency across 10 provinces as death toll rises to over 5,000. Hello and welcome to Trust News Update. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Now the news in detail. President Muhammadu Buhari has met with Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele, Chairman of Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and 2 governors on Tuesday at Aso Villa. The governors had asked that the president intervene to allow both the old and new notes co-circulate to ease cash crunch recorded across the country. President Muhammadu Buhari has met privately with the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Aminu Tambuwal, and the chairman of the Progressives Governors Forum, Atiku Bagudu, over the scarcity of the new Naira notes. The meeting held at the president's office at State House, Abuja. Also in attendance at the meeting is the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo. Last Friday, the president had implored citizens to give him a 7-day window which lapsed on February 10 to resolve the currency crunch that had emanated from the implementation of the central bank policy to change high-value Naira notes with newly designed ones after a meeting with the All Progressives Congress governors. Nigerians hope for the resolution of the ongoing cash crunch within 7 days promised by President Muhammadu Buhari may be in jeopardy after 5 political parties obtained a restraining order against any extension of the deadline. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, gave the indication at the ongoing scorecard series of the Buhari administration, describing the action of the parties as unpatriotic and against genuine government efforts to ease the hardship. Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman reports.
The Information Minister takes advantage of his media briefings to condemn the action of the 5 political parties that secured a restraining order against the deadline extension. Mohammed says the opposition parties have taken politics too far without considering the hardship being faced by Nigerians as a result of the cash crunch.
These unscrupulous opposition parties do not want any action that could reduce the pains being experienced by Nigerians. How else can one explain the fact that they have decided to legally hamstring Mr. President, in particular, from providing any relief for Nigerians suffering from the cash crunch?
While Nigerians continue to lose head and resources to the Naira scarcity and racketeering by unpatriotic citizens, hopes for a quick resolution of the crisis now appears slim. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Farouk, said the Buhari administration has made a mark in providing relief to vulnerable Nigerians, especially the poorest of the poor.
We wish we could make everyone comfortable in this country, and that is not very possible, but we're doing our best, and we have impacted on these lives. People who before could not feed, they can now afford to feed themselves and members of their families.
She reels out figures of those affected by the last year's flood, which killed 655 Nigerians, displaced over 2 million, and destroyed 676,945 farmlands in the affected states. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Still on Naira redesign, Kano State Governor Abdullahi Ganduje has accused the CBN of working with certain elements to stop the possible extension of the February 10 deadline for the validity of the old versions of the redesigned Naira notes. Governor Ganduje also alleged that elements from the annulled June 12, 1993 presidential election are regrouping and using the current crisis generated by the Naira redesign policy to undermine Nigeria's democracy. The governor was reacting to an interim injunction issued by a federal high court in Abuja, which stopped the CBN from extending the 10-day deadline set for the currency swap. He claimed that these individuals are disguising themselves as unknown political parties and working with the main opposition party, the PDP, to impose an unfeasible cash policy that is affecting the masses. In a statement issued by the Commissioner for Information, Muhammad Garba, Ganduje accused the CBN and supporters of the Naira redesign policy of being rigid in the implementation of what he called harsh and insensitive cash policy, despite the widespread outrage by Nigerians, including the National Assembly and state governors. 3 days to the deadline on circulation of old Naira notes, Nigerians are still facing chaos and frustrations at banks and automated teller machines where long queues are formed to get the new currency. Trust TV's Kabir Lowell reports on the ordeal of Nigerians trying to get money ahead of the CBN deadline. The report.
The central bank has extended the deadline from January 31st to February 10th. But the extension has not ended the scarcity of new notes. Instead, it created more queues at the banks. Nigerians have expressed displeasure for the short period given and the persistent unavailability of new Naira notes, saying that the new notes are hard to get even at the automated teller machines.
We have been coming, we'll come, we go call, we'll not go see money. As you can see, I'm just coming back from work with my load. I've been inside here for almost 2 hours. There's no money. I went to Access Bank, they were giving me 50 naira. What am I going to do with 50 naira?
A cross-section of people explained that the ATMs have not been dispensing cash, while some banks are still giving the old Naira notes, contrary to the CBN directives to the banks.
The CBN keeps telling us that the banks have the money to dispense, but if you go to banks, even on the counter, you cannot get. This morning I was inside this bank here, UBA here, to withdraw money. We're told they have just 15 naira.
They says money not there for the ATM. So we are still lining up and sitting down. See some people, they are on ground, sitting down to waiting for manna for heaven to come down.
Most people on the ATM queues said the scarcity makes life difficult for them.
Some people sleep in the ATM from morning till night, every day. Like yesterday I was here to take some cash. I waited to almost 1 hour and some minutes. I didn't even have the cash. I went back. Today I'm here again. There's nothing is happening here. Nothing.
This morning I came in to withdraw. We're told we can only get 3,000 naira from the bank.
Maximum?
Yes, maximum. Because that they are out of cash.
Her point of sale operator said charges are now high because of the stress they pass through before getting the little cash.
If you look around my streets, a lot of POS shop has been shut down because of lack of cash. And most times, we that do this POS, it's very difficult for us to get cash using the ATM. Like I myself here, I have account with Providus Bank. And Providus Bank is the only bank that has been consistent in keeping money in their ATM machine.
President Buhari has asked governors to give him till Friday to address the problem, and Nigerians are anxiously waiting to see what happens between now and then. Kabir Lowell, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Despite warning by the police, some residents of Ondo State are currently staging a protest to express their grievances over the scarcity of fuel and the new Naira notes. The protesters, who grounded the Bizi-Ore-Benin Expressway, also prevented vehicular and human movement on the routes. Motorists and commuters have been forced to use alternative routes. One of the protesters, Adebimbe Ogunyemi, told our reporter that the recent hardship ravaging the country, especially the scarcity of petrol, forced them to take to the streets. The police had asked residents in the state not to embark on any protest on the streets to demonstrate the lingering fuel scarcity and hoarding of the new Naira notes by commercial banks in order to avoid a breach of peace. Moving on to security, residents of Guga, Kandarawa and Jergaba village in Bakori local government area of Katsina are still mourning the death of over 100 people killed by bandits. The residents say they are now living in fear as vigilantes who provide protection were not spared by the attacks. Abdullahi Yamadi reports that the residents of the affected communities said security operatives have abandoned them to their fate. His report.
The communities are coming to terms with deadliest attack launched by the terrorists in one of the insecurity-prone local governments in Katsina State. The communities are mourning the death of their loved ones who lost their lives trying to protect them and their property. At least many out of the 100 victims are from this village. The bereaved families said attacks like the recent one are frequent occurrence and the communities are often helpless. This is not the first time we are witnessing this type of attacks. We are confused, living in fear, apprehension, and uncertainty. Most residents, especially women and children, have fled to other towns perceived safer. This is the worst moment of our lives. Many of us have lost their breadwinners, leaving behind young children and widows. The concern here is, no matter what anybody else could do, the lives of orphans and widows left behind are exposed to a lot of dangers. Lack of access roads compound the problem for the communities such that security operatives cannot respond to their distress calls when bandits on motorcycles launch attacks. The killing of the vigilantes is a big blow for the residents as many of them volunteer to guard the areas against possible attack. The killing leaves them at the mercy of hoodlums.
We believe in predestination, qadar. So whatever happens is already planned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we can't go beyond that. We have to bear it and even call our people to accept these trials. Allah plans for us. So the situation is calm. We believe in Allah. It's Allah that caused these things because they have been operating this thing for long and nothing happened. So we pray may Allah forgive their shortcomings.
Residents said the attacks have devastating effects on the socio-economic well-being of the affected communities. Katsina State government's delegation had visited to condole with the families of victims of the attack. Abdullahi Yamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has directed security agencies to raid any suspected area or premises and clamp down on cultists, militant support groups, and other miscreants used by politicians to disturb the peace and safety and also the security of the state. Governor Wike has also urged anyone with useful information about the camps, gatherings, plans and activities of these criminal elements and their sponsors to forward same to security agencies for action. The governor, who gave the directive in a statewide broadcast in Port Harcourt following the rise in cultism and related activities across the state, maintained that no amount of syndicated misinformation, campaigns of calumny and diatribes by the section of the media and the political elites will deter the state government from enforcing the laws of the state against those who vainly claim to be above them. He assured that the state government will continue to support security agencies to sustain the prevailing atmosphere of peace and security for voters to exercise their voting rights without fear or intimidation before, during, and after the elections.
We also denounced the rising cases of cultism in the state during this electionary period, which are sponsored by politicians to settle political scores. Apart from committing heinous crimes, cultists masking as party support groups and thugs are used by rival party leaders to assault opponents and disrupt party meetings, especially in those political parties with protracted internal crisis arising from their flawed primaries. We are also aware that desperate politicians are recruiting and arming cultists and other miscreants to be used to attack and intimidate voters during the polls. I wish to warn that no responsible government will close its eyes to the threat posed by these cultists, fanatical party support groups, and their sponsors to free and fair elections in the state. I have directed security agencies to raid any suspected area or premises and clamp down on cultists, militant support groups, and other miscreants being used by politicians to disturb the peace, safety, and security of the state. I wish to restate that no amount of syndicated misinformation, campaigns of calumny, and diatribes by a section of the media and the political elites would deter the state government from enforcing the laws of the state against those who vainly claim to be above them.
Still on security, 3 soldiers have been wounded and 6 villagers killed by armed men in a fresh attack on Ikobi community in Akpa local government area of Benue State. Reports say a soldier was killed and 2 of his colleagues were seriously injured after an encounter with the gunmen who invaded the rural community at the weekend. But the military confirmed that 3 soldiers were wounded in the encounter with bandits. One of the locals said that soldiers of Operation World Stroke stationed at Agagbe responded to a distress call and during the process encountered the bandits at Say Abwa in Gwe West local government area. The lawmaker representing Akpa State constituency, Abu Umoru, confirmed the killings of our reporter, I beg your pardon, through telephone. While the police in the state are yet to confirm the incident, the Operation World Stroke spokesperson, Flight Lieutenant Kati Audu, in a statement, confirmed the attack on Ikobi community and said 3 soldiers were wounded in the encounter with the armed herders. You're watching News Update on Trust TV. Coming up after the break. Sigh of relief for blind student. Stay with us.
Security has to be an area they must work on.
We are going to have our own country called Biafra.
You are afraid to come out and move about, lest one hoodlum or the other will harm you.
People who have guns and the rest of them could be attacked. How about we, the helpless citizens?
Olo office was attacked. The Isu office was attacked.
I haven't even seen where people are going to collect their PVC for voting.
The IPOB people, they're not criminals, but they're just crying out for justice and help.
We will deploy reasonably and strategically to make sure that we decimate the activities of these bad elements who are causing problems in the land.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Treated a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at England squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
Welcome back and thanks for joining us on a News Update. Let's take a recap of our top stories. We told you that President Buhari meets governors, CBN, EFCC over Naira's scarcity. We also told you that 3 days to Naira circulation deadline, chaos remains at banks as scarcity persists. Moving to electoral matters, with just a few weeks to the general elections, many prospective voters are swayed by the brickbats being thrown at one another by politicians than issues on ground. This, however, gives electorates little or no information on their preferred candidates and their manifestos or portfolios. Trust TV's Adamu Imam interviewed some Bauchi residents on their preferred candidates based on portfolio.
As 2023 general elections draw nearer, many electorates are hoping to see their presidential candidates emerge victorious without the full knowledge and understanding of portfolios and or manifestos declaring publicly the intentions, motives, or views of the candidates. Potential voters in Bauchi State say despite the little knowledge about their candidates' manifestos, they will vote for them.
Someone to firstly be a flag bearer of a certain flag bearer of the presidency and to be a president. You know, from history records, you know, when Ashwaji governed Lagos as a governor, but because of his ability to identify competence, but he has been able to, you know, identify people of competence, people of capacity from even not within Lagos but outside Lagos.
Look at how we are suffering now on the issue of petroleum product. That's number one. Number two, he has agenda for security of this country. You can see what is happening all over the country. North, south, east, west, everywhere this country is shaking. He said, by God's grace, he says, when he gets to the villa, everything will be team of the past.
He's working whenever he has the opportunity with a highly intellectual people, even if they are not from his own site. If you are potential enough to work and to bring development into what he is aiming, he used to work with you. So that is what convinced me to love and to make my mind to vote for Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Member of a political party and a stakeholder, Salisu Zakari, says the presidential candidate, irrespective of party affiliations, should at least be able to convince electorates through their manifestos.
Those who have the blueprint, they go and tell the electorates what they have for them. And therefore, I will advise the people to actually go for those who have the common man in their mind.
However, member of a civil society organization advised voters not to make a wrong choice. Instead, they should cross-check facts without sentiment about candidates before balloting.
In the Second Republic, we realized that MPN is telling us that, look, every Nigerian deserves to have a home. And we began to see federal locals, state locals in those states. But now, what does all this political party represent? Nothing. So it should be manifesto-based. There should be a blueprint.
He maintained that electorates should learn a lesson from previous elections and change their conduct towards casting their votes. Adami Imam, Trust TV News, Bauchi.
The Bauchi State Government has restored the appointment of a blind student of mass communication, Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, Muhammad Hussaini Yakubu, whose temporary appointment was terminated. Trust TV had in September last year reported the plight of the student and termination of his temporary appointment after he changed his course of study from veterinary medicine to mass communication when he lost his sight. Ado Musa completes the report.
Muhammad Hussaini is an indigene of the local government area of Bauchi State and gained admission to study veterinary medicine at ABU Zaria, but developed retinal detachment when he was in 200 level, a development that forced him to leave the course for mass communication due to practicals involved. According to Muhammad, those studying pharmacy, medicine, veterinary medicine and other related courses were given temporary appointments, and after graduation, they will be given permanent and pensionable appointments, but his appointment was terminated after he lost his sight in 2019. However, The blind student said the Bauchi State government has restored his appointment. He said he is grateful to the state government for the gesture.
19 Bauchi State Civil Servants Verification Exercise that lead to the termination of my appointment after my complete loss of sight by the verification committee. I have returned my appointment, and this is the appointment letter. I want to use this medium to express my sincere appreciation to His Excellency, Executive Governor of Bauchi State, Alhaji Bala Abdul Qadir Muhammad Kauran Bauchi Jagaban Katagun, for looking into my consideration.
The blind student also thanked Trust TV for the interview that caught the attention of the state government.
I also want to express my gratitude to Trust TV for the so much effort that they have made on my issue, so that my message to get to the right people that are expected to hear about my issue.
Hussaini said he is grateful to all the people that contributed to the restoration of his appointment. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
On the international scene, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has announced a 3-month state of emergency across the 10 provinces worst affected by Monday's devastating earthquakes. Authorities said the death toll from the earthquakes centered in southeastern Turkey rose to 3,549, bringing a total number of killed, including those in northern Syria, to more than 5,000. In a speech, Erdogan said that 70 countries had offered help in search and rescue operations, adding that Turkey planned to open up hotels in the tourism hub of Antalya to the west to temporarily house people impacted by the quakes. He said the death toll in Turkey had risen to 3,549 people. The initial 7.8 magnitude quake, centered about 33 kilometers from the city of Gaziantep, brought down buildings as people slept and was followed by a magnitude 7.6 earthquake hours later amid several aftershocks. And finally, in sports, Ghana international winger Christian Atsu has been found alive after being buried under rubble in the earthquake that hit Turkey. The vice president of his football club, Mustafa Ozak, said Christian Atsu was pulled out injured, but the club's sporting director, Taner Savat, is unfortunately still under the rubble. Atsu, who plays for Hatayspor, was reported missing in Turkey's Hatay province following the magnitude 7.8 quake and its aftershocks that brought down thousands of buildings, killing over 5,000 people in several Turkish and Syrian cities on Monday. Atsu, 31, played in English Premier League for Newcastle United and Everton on loan from Chelsea and joined Hatayspor in September. He was last selected to play for Ghana in 2019, but has not officially retired from international football. And with that, we've come to the end of Trust News Update. Don't forget to follow us across all our social media platforms. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Thanks for watching.